What was it that, outside of just outworking people, that allowed you to sell so many properties on year one? Something that very few people do. And more importantly, you weren't working with a real estate agent that was like the biggest in the nation, or, you know, like $1 million listing kind of agent that's known publicly, that has leads coming in every day. So how did you get to that place? I'm just curious if you can walk us through the kind of the beginning stage of that.
Sure. One thing that I think that leads to people failing so miserably is they have too many options when it comes to what they're going to do to generate their business. So I just met with as many, and I even did this even before I was licensed. I talked to some of the top agents in that office, and I reached out to many as I could online, and I started just asking them some basic questions to see what they did when they started. And I found a lot of common denominators. A lot of them, they prescribe to the old school stuff, like, you know, going door to door and cold calling people, right? So I immediately started practicing and working on my skills with that. Again, even before I got licensed, I started understanding and studying all the pieces of our market and all the data, all the contracts, so I knew them inside and out. I mastered what was the process of meeting somebody all the way to the end, when we either hand them the keys if they're a buyer, or we give them a check if they're a seller. But I would say the main thing that helped me was those really, really exclusive interviews and chats that I had with those mentors, man, because they kind of laid the foundation. Because the work you have to do, they just told me, okay, put your time and effort into these activities, follow this system, and this is what's going to work. And to encompass it, I would say most people do not treat real estate like an actual business. They don't run it like a business, and that's why they fail. I was given that blueprint right away, and I applied it, and that's what ultimately led to me having more success than the average realtor.
So that's really important, because you're talking about, you know, shadowing people, calling ahead and trying to find mentors, not even saying, hey, mentor me, tell me exactly what to do, but just, I need some specific advice on this or that. A lot of people would argue, well, that's so not easily received, because so many people probably call these people that they don't really want to take the time to talk to them. What was it that you said to people that made them open to conversing with you? I mean, you got to understand that if someone's watching this video, they're going to be like, well, I can't just call everybody and be like, yo, tell me like what to do and I'll do it, you know, and they'll be like, sure, I don't know who you are, but I'll spend all this time telling you.
Well, two things, man. In my first office, I would offer to get them lunch. And since maybe we were at the same office, they felt comfortable doing it. But I've shared this story with a lot of people. I said, I remember going to those lunches even before I got my license, and I would be afraid that paying for the lunch, my card would bounce because I had like literally no money, dude. And so I remember those moments vividly, and then going back home and seeing that my account had like $3 left, I was like, okay, it cleared. But I started, and maybe this is the wrong move. I remember right when I started, I got a coach, and that coach had seminars. It was Mike Ferry, who's like the old school, you know, the godfather of real estate, they call him. And at these events, I remember the first 10 rows are for like the top producers and the top people. And anytime there was a break or before the first session, I would show up early and I sprinted over to that area and I started talking to people. And I think between the first two events, I must have asked over 100 people if they would talk to me, practice with me, the dialogues and those, you know, customer to customer talks, or just go out with me for 5 minutes and do a little interview and let me ask them questions. Out of the 100 people I asked, bro, I think I had 3 people say yes. But I went to that event, I paid, right? It was on a credit card, but I paid to go. That's ultimately, that combined with asking so many people is what allowed me to do it, because you're right. A lot of people would just say no or ignore you. I get 100 emails a day asking, be my mentor, can I take you out? And there's some people that I'll do it to, but it was just the sheer effort of me doing it. And then specifically going to those events, I think is what made it easier. So I put some skin in the game, and that allowed me to get closer to those people.
What makes a really good real estate agent? Meaning, like, if you were going to imagine that the people listening to this are all real estate agents that have just gotten their first job with Exit Realty or some smaller company that, you know, has agreed to give them some kind of opportunity. Well, what do they have to do to be successful, you know, to at least get their ground started like you did?
Yeah. Man, there's a lot I could talk about that subject. The first thing I would do is, and this is something that I didn't do correctly when I started, I did some business with people that I knew, but I tell people that's your gold mine, and they call it in real estate your sphere of influence. We all have 40, 50, 100, 200 people that we know, and you have to do your best in the beginning to align yourself with those people and let them know I'm doing real estate and I can get the job done. Now, if you're new and you have zero confidence or knowledge, team up with somebody. Even if that means you split the deals with them, that'll give you that leverage that you need to feel confident in front of people, or you take them with you to the appointment with the clients. Secondly, you got to talk to a lot of people every single day. When I started, there was no, I'm taking the weekend off. It was practically 7 days a week. I was going door to door. I was calling people. I mean, it was like some Wolf of Wall Street shit, like literally every day, just every day, every day, every day, every day. And the third one, just to keep it simple, you got to work on your skills, guys. After a couple months, could sit in front of a client at any price point, and they could try to break me with their questions and question my experience and all that. I was so confident delivering information about the market, the neighborhoods, that I could not be broken. And that is 100% in your control, because you can study the stats, you can figure out average price points. I would go and visit all these new listings that were going on the market, even if they weren't mine, and I would take a look at them and preview them, as we call it, and then I would start writing down what I think it's going to sell for, right? And then as they started selling, as the months went by, I noticed that I was almost dead on right every time. So you fast forward to when I have a meeting with the seller, I can tell them with 100% confidence what price it should sell for, right? And that's what's missing, is people, especially if they're going to trust you to sell their $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million asset, they want to know that you can get the job done and that you're confident. If you're sitting in front of them sweating and shaking in your boots and your voice is cracking, you're going to have some trouble selling real estate. Because when I started, I was 27, probably looked like I was 23, and I dealt with a lot of the same demons that you guys deal with. Oh, I'm too young. But now I have students of mine who are 20, 21, listing $1, $2, $3, $4 million properties. So the skills aspect of it is the most overlooked and is 100% in your control. Study your market, study your dialogues, know what to say, figure out how to say it, practice, practice, practice. And I'll end it with this. When I started, every day I would record my presentations that I would do to people and have my mentors critique it. And I would practice conversations I'd have with customers 2 hours a day, 2 hours a day. And after a couple months, sky's the limit, dude. You'll be a machine.
You know, it seems like there is such a clear and evident commitment to the trade of real estate when I listen to you talk. You know, it's not just like, oh, I was in it to sell homes. It's like I was in it to become a better realtor before I could lead a team, and so on and so forth. You know, and I think a lot of people, that's what's missing today, is we don't hear them talk about becoming better at what they did. You know, like you're saying, like, I studied the market. Not that you were going to sell that house. You studied the market so you would get better. You know, and I think that's what's missing in a lot of these people, is like they go in the office and they tell them, well, call these 20 people. One of them will set up an appointment. And then outside of calling these 20 people, hopefully you'll go over there and use your charms to get them to give you a listing. And you're sitting there like, you're joking, right? Like, you know, why would someone trust their $3 million asset to my smile? Like, you know, like that doesn't make sense. And so I think that one of the things that's really evident in your success is that it seems to be really focused around, and I talk about this a lot in my books, about focusing on the trade specifically and getting better at it rather than focusing on the job to be done, you know? And I think that, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's played such a big part in you finding success faster.
Absolutely, brother. And that goes outside of real estate too. It was because of that dedication that then people following me as I documented everything on YouTube were saying, hey man, do you have a product on how to do a better presentation? And I remember I released my first product, my door knocking mastery, to teach people how to be better going door to door, right? And then it evolved from there. But it was tens of thousands of doors that I knocked on, and I perfected my craft. If somebody told me or gave me an objection that I didn't have the answer to, I would tell them, man, that's a good one. And I remember like leaving that day, and at night I would write down that objection and then come up with 3 or 4 good responses, and I would drill it and drill it and drill it. So the next time I go out, I'm ready for that thing. And that's what's missed nowadays, dude. Everybody wants to be the jack of all trades. Oh, I'm a super serial entrepreneur, but nobody wants to focus down on one thing and master it. And that's where the key is to being really good and being elevated to the top of your field and making that income and whatever it is that you're doing that is, you know, 6 figures, 7 figures, or whatever it is. And that was one of the things that I got from the mentors that I interviewed in the beginning was master the craft. I remember them saying that. A lot of them said that same line, master the craft. And that always stuck with me.
And the things you teach today, you know, in your course don't necessarily only apply to real estate, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of something you can use in any aspects of presentation, selling, or just relationship management. Can you share a little bit about what was the greatest learning you've had in your real estate career so far that you think people are overlooking? Meaning, is it a sales learning? Is it a service learning? You know, you said earlier confidence played a big part in your success early on, but what
Yeah.
else really attributed to your ability to sell homes?
Well, I think it was this. A lot of people in the industry have that kind of, and I won't necessarily say it bad. It just has a bad label on it. The whole shark mentality. I'm going to be a top salesman and just close people. Well, that's good. But the moment I started learning that, the skills that we develop, it's all about the customer, right? And when I started ringing that in my mind, it made it a lot easier to sell. Because when I said it's all about them, I would get out of my shoes, put myself in their shoes, and I want to have conversations with them. When I interact with customers via email or in person, I'm just helping them navigate through their stuff and helping them come to a decision. And sometimes that decision is to not sell their home or buy a home and wait a couple months. But when it came from this like service mentality and me just focusing on them and not me immediately counting up the commission in my head when I'm talking to them, it really not only made a better impact on them and they liked me more, but it made the whole process of sales and growing my business much more enjoyable and much better and much more impactful. Because now when I cold call somebody, it's not, okay, I'm rolling up my sleeves and getting my shield and my sword and I'm going to war. It's, okay, how can I help people?